If everyone can take their seats, that would be great.
Let's get it.
Yeah. Okay, so in case you just stumbled here in an accident, this is the University President's Panel. I'm Eric. I'm part of Penn Blockchain and Franklin Dow. I lead their research team. And I'll just ask you guys to quickly introduce yourselves.
Hey guys, I'm Jason. I'm the co-founder, chairman, and those two of Blockchain UCLA. So we've been here for quite a few years now.
Hey everyone, I'm Caleb. I am the vice president of blockchain at Columbia and Lion Dow.
I'm Sophia. You might have seen me earlier today. I'm one of the co-presidents of Penn Blockchain.
My name's Chunda, also one of the co-presidents of Penn Blockchain as well.
Okay. Why don't you guys, I know all crypto, clubs and universities and DAOs, I guess, are all very different. So if you guys want to talk to us a little bit about what your club or DAO specifically does, let's get started there.
Cool. So I think for Blockchain at UCLA, our core focus is down to 3 pillars. It's mainly academic, industry, and also technical. So the idea is to have sort of a conduit between the academic side of things, doing research with professors, having those relationships, but also having people come in to speak from industry, having that exposure, getting students aware of what's going on, but also on the third part, getting technical skills built up while people are still in school to give them the ability to go out there in the real world and actually build something impactful and have sort of their own voice in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. At Blockchain at Columbia, we focus on education and especially hands-on education. So we do a lot of events. We have 2 flagship events every year, and those are Ledger Fest, which is our speaker conference, which we threw this September. We had 60 speakers, we had 500 attendees. It honestly looked a lot like this, except we couldn't host it at Columbia and had to host it downtown. And we have a hackathon coming in April. We also host events throughout the year. We have several different focus groups of students focused on different types of research. We have a grants program, and we have a pretty strong alumni network that we can connect students to.
Ledger Fest and also the Lion Hacks was where I think our club got very close. So very appreciative of those events at Columbia.
That's awesome.
But Penn Blockchain has been around for a little bit. I feel like I spoke a little bit to it this morning, but basically we have a similar threefold focus where we want to bring together academia, institutions governmental and financial institutions, and also the emerging space. But we have this idea of an education pipeline to more substantial contribution for very dedicated members who want to work in the space. And on that front, we have different committees, one of which Eric leads, research, and we also do things in investment, governance, and development, operations. We like to send people to conferences, so kind of all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I agree.
Great contribution, thank you. I'm kind of curious, I think one reason I like crypto is because I meet all sorts of really cool people. I guess, you guys are constantly recruiting for your clubs and universities. Do you guys notice any specific trends of, the type of person that's attracted to crypto, the type of person that you end up letting into your club if it is application-based, et cetera?
Yeah, so I'll go first. I think one trend that we first noticed back when we first started heavily getting on campus back in the end of 2017, sort of 2018, was that during that era, there was a lot of ICO hype, right? So a lot of sort of the ideas that brought people into crypto were how do these tokens create real networks that create real value, right? And I think that as sort of that market cycle died down a bit and we've kind of gotten to this most recent one with DeFi and some more interesting topics, one thing that we see is people who are coming in now with just a broad idea of what blockchain is or what blockchain can do, but actually very specific applications. And not only that, but people coming in from other fields rather than just from computer science, but for people coming in from math backgrounds and from other backgrounds. They're looking at this more as an application to their field rather than just something that they think is sort of a hobby.
Yeah, awesome. So at Blockchain at Columbia, we've always attracted pretty technical students. And one major reason for that is that the business school actually has their own club. So business school students haven't been part of Blockchain at Columbia, even though the rest of the professional schools have. So very technical students, programmers typically choose blockchain at Columbia, though I will say also that I think that that dynamic is maybe changing. And like through market cycles, you see inclines and declines in interest, but I also think you see different types of interests. And I think that now, for example, kind of there are more like kind of artists or creatives interested in blockchain type things and like want to participate in club events, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I'd say like, to call back on what you're talking about with market cycles, there's definitely been waves of like different types of interests based on, especially when people got into the space. And so we see a lot of people that kind of, if they enter in and they learned about it like in high school in like 2017 or like around that era, they're usually like more developer focused, more finance focused, especially, you know, because of our business school and like that, its presence in the undergraduate network. A lot of students inherently kind of gravitate towards like financial applications and so on and so forth. But as kind of time goes on and, you know, we continued to grow over time and following like this previous bull cycle, we had a lot more people focused on kind of like the community aspect, focused on more like general and holistic research as well coming in, as well as focus on things like more specialized niches like RWA and things of that nature. And I think like to the extent of like where are we at today, I'd say at this point we've hit a pretty interesting point because it's really diverse now. We have kind of a little bit of everything. I think it kind of showcases itself in how we like to do our ecosystem work, because it's really a place where like no matter kind of what interest you have or what kind of interest you want to pursue, like there's something that you can like execute on in the ecosystem that we can try to support you in doing. And that's like honestly what I hope to still persist as like the end state moving forward.
Yeah, I think you guys are talking a lot about like how like DeFi, summer, like all sorts of like random like things that go on in crypto have affected the amount of people that go into like certain areas. But I wonder, you know, do you think that there's less interest during bear cycles, et cetera? Like, do you think that the price of crypto and the price action of crypto is affecting recruitment or how your club sees crypto or like interest, et cetera?
Yeah, I think that the market cycles definitely impact sort of the popularity, but more specifically, I think it actually affects the time horizon of the students who are interested in blockchain. I think that when you have, you know, a DeFi summer going on or something where there's, you know, lots of money flying around, lots of new projects, you know, popping up, there's a lot of impetus to sort of, you know, come in, learn the key skills, see what you need to do, and then, you know, maybe get out there, right? But when you come in sort of like a slower period, such as like 2019 or maybe, you know, this 2023 year, one thing is that people generally have a longer time horizon of this stuff, and they kind of understand that either they got in during the last market cycle and they think that like, hey, some of this stuff might be like actually really fundamental, or they might be thinking like, hey, you know, the stuff that got me interested in might actually work at a longer time scale, right? So it's coming down to more just like adoption and some of these factors that actually don't follow speculation quite as closely. So I think the actual main difference is actually the focus of the students coming in at different periods of a cycle.
Yeah, no, totally. And you got to think about like students' motivations, like kind of as Chunda talked about in different periods of the cycle. And you know, during a bear cycle, the motivations are almost much more likely to be pure and kind of in it for the tech, we say, than during a bull market. And I would say that one specific example I have from kind of this cycle and the past 6 months or year is that I've noticed way more students into kind of zero knowledge technology and kind of getting deep into cryptography, like connected with crypto stuff for sure, because that's where a lot of the funding is in that space, but like kind of also independently, which has been really cool. And you know, there was like, I was listening to a podcast, I think, by Tarun Chitra one time, and he was talking about how he was in crypto during kind of the 2017-18 bear market, or the 2018-19 bear market, and there was like this group of people that was like kind of like religious and like very upset that their tokens went down and kind of like creating stories and conspiracy theories. But there was this other group of people like building permissionless applications, and that was when we got all kind of like what we know now as the blue chip DeFi protocols, and they were optimizing parameters and whatnot. And I think that there are, maybe ZK is one of them, but there are maybe a few groups like that during this bear market, and it's actually really helpful for that reason.
I think not much more to add because we've seen the same cyclic things, but I think something that has been really powerful for us is sparking a little bit of the motivation. I think I mentioned before that traditionally we kind of did like a concurrent education and then like would try and get people in the space simultaneously and they just wouldn't have enough knowledge to do things like participating in governance forums or participating on DeFi protocols. Like they just wouldn't have the background for that. But then we learned that there's a lot of people who want to be interested but kind of need that preliminary push. So we have the education program to start. Teach people the fundamentals, like kind of build them up and build that interest, get them in the space, like get them to have a Twitter, and then like push them towards actually doing this meaningful contribution or like getting a job in the space. And that motivates people a lot more than before, I think we found.
I think one other unique thing about crypto is like a lot of students, even when they're in the club, right, end up doing things for industry. So whether it's like delegation, whether it's, you know, doing sourcing or stuff, I think it's pretty rare if you look at, you know, TradFi or like private equity or anything, right? They're not hiring college clubs to do any significant, you know, function of their firm. I guess like you want to talk more about like why that might be the case and whether we see that as sustainable.
I think crypto is actually one of the few fields that college students are the people actually leading at some points. You know, in a lot of traditional industries such as, you know, finance, private, like specifically investment banking, private equity, a lot of the sort of financial fields, the sort of structure is kind of set, and you know, for the most part, it works pretty well, right? Or at least it's functional, right? So there's really no new areas that need any sort of new structures or new building or new companies. It's mostly marginal improvements on current existing structures or just responses to, you know, for example, new regulation. But I think when you have such a young field like cryptocurrency, like blockchain, and you have it such that it's so technically dense and reliant on the internet, you were actually in the perfect position in the college environment to actually take advantage of this, because we, having the sort of first exposure to these things, are able to actually form frameworks and sort of attitudes around these technologies that allow us to be the natives rather than having to sort of learn from experience from people who have done this for 30, 40 years. So I think the biggest difference is actually just having that fresh mindset and being able to take advantage of it while, you know, you're still sort of free from too many commitments.
Yeah, no, there's totally just a huge fluidity between kind of student and crypto builder for definitely a good percentage of our club members. You know, and it's really pretty cool for students, I think, and like a power. Like for example, I was looking this morning at the list from Lionhack last year of kind of things that got built, and I noticed one protocol called New Omen that I've been looking a bunch into kind of like NFT options and then also crypto token options, and it was one of them that was built at Lionhack last year, and I didn't even realize that. It also does propose certain challenges sometimes. Like sometimes students will just stop going to school and start working.
Is that really a challenge, or is that?
I guess it's a success story. But we definitely lose like some of the strongest club members that way.
We're about to lose Chunda too, maybe.
I was about to say, that's crazy that you mentioned that. Yeah, no, I mean, there is a running joke in our org where it's like when you become president, there's like a ticking timer, like 1 year, then you're gone. So there's definitely truth to that statement. But yeah, I would say like when it comes to this idea of like students being able to contribute at such a pronounced manner, I think it really stems from like a lot of things that Jason was talking about, with not necessarily like, I would say, an equal playing field from the sense of like maybe everyone who's been in the industry for a while, but I think it's an equal playing field for actually being able to improve what current pre-existing things already are set. Because honestly, nothing is set, and no matter like how long you've been in the industry, like if you aren't keeping up at the same rate that, you know, someone who joins an org and is like dedicating their life for a year or 2 years to really learn, you're going to fall behind what their pace of learning is. And I kind of liken it to like when Sophia and I first joined like Penn blockchain, being able to understand and explain like what LPing was like genius. And this was like, like 2020, right? So this was like, beginning of DeFi. And nowadays it's like, if you know that, it's like the absolute bare minimum to call yourself like, you read at least one like beginning intro of like what crypto is. And it's like that pace of learning that kind of every one of us has to upkeep pretty much indefinitely until the industry hits a stable state is like that great equalizer and allowing us to be able to contribute meaningfully because honestly, students, we have a lot of time on our hands. And so we're able to really spend that time, which we have in an abundance and a lot of people in the industry don't, to really be able to find a place in the industry for us to thrive and to actually generate, really impactful kind of work.
I might be very biased in saying this, but I think that crypto has this unique capacity to attract people who are very innately curious. So I think probably everyone in this room is super curious enough to go down the rabbit hole and like actively pursue a lot of knowledge. I think that's something that like maybe is a characteristic of a lot of nascent technologies, crypto being like the most recent one. But if you're able to go down the rabbit hole, theoretically you could work anywhere or found anything you want, and there's no like educational threshold to go down the rabbit hole. No, nothing stopping you except your own curiosity, so it's a little special in that way.
I guess, do you guys want an opportunity to maybe flex a little bit? What's the coolest, thing your club has done in your opinion, or one of your proudest moments?
Yeah, I think in the recent times, actually, it's our research group. I think one thing that is sort of moving under the current here is actually the sort of academic portion of these universities, right? For the longest time, blockchain was laughed off as a joke, right? Some places it still is. The idea that these cryptocurrencies are going to become legal, if they become real, they're going to actually be used, is still some sort of a notion in some places, right? And actually, for those of you guys who are sort of, maybe thinking about this, fits a very, very similar pattern to what was artificial intelligence, right? For the longest time in the 90s, AI was dreamt up as some sort of, like cracked out nut job. If you were actually in academia at the time and you were associating with people doing AI, it was actually a risk to your whole career because people would say like, don't hang out with those connectionists, right? They're just putting like lines between dots together, right? They're just doing matrix operations and none of this will ever work out, right? And then you see in the early 2010s, hey, like we made this thing called, neural networks and they're actually working, and then you have this whole field, right? So AI being a field that started in the 70s and having about, 40 years to actually fully mature, 40 to 50, really sort of puts a perspective on this sort of stuff, right? And I think that in the 21st century, one thing that we're actually seeing differently is that these technologies are actually evolving much quicker. Part of that is the internet, having faster communication. People are learning on their own. They can just go home and read Wikipedia if they're bored or if they're curious. And I think that one thing that results from this is actually a faster pace of technological adoption. So one thing that we love to do actually is having that exposure to sort of the forefront of research allows us as students to really keep up on this pace. And one of my predictions is that the forefront of academia in this sort of space will actually catch up faster than what we're used to for usually what is a sort of sluggish field.
Very interesting. I'd say for me, I'd like to highlight like kind of how much goes into producing an event like this, and like our Lion Hack and Ledger Fest. And normally there are like kind of 15 to 20 students involved. They never really put on an event like this. It's like massive kind of budget, like both on the cost and raising side. You bring in like a bunch of people from the industry and kind of learn how to network. You curate a schedule. It's a pretty big production, and I think it teaches like everyone who's involved with it a lot.
I think there's a lot of things that have been very meaningful to us, and of course this event is incredibly impactful, but I won't steal what you said. So I would say the other thing that's been really meaningful to us is being able to send people to conferences and hackathons. So I think we have started to kind of focus on generating revenue, not so much for the purpose of like having revenue, but more to fund the culture and give people the opportunity to do things that they wouldn't be able to do on their own. Like we kind of view clubs not so much as like an organization of people, but like a stepping stone for them in their personal career and personal journey in crypto. And part of that is being able to attend these events and like get to meet people. A lot of this is like so face-to-face, this industry. So we've been able to send people to a lot of cool places domestically, internationally, and yeah, that's been super fun.
Yeah, and I think like one thing to kind of just like bring it home, like a small anecdote from that actually comes from Lionhack. One of our members who was pretty green was really avid in learning, like went to Lionhacks, just didn't build anything, just kind of sat there, absorbed everything, kind of watched everything, talked to a whole bunch of people. And it turns out like, you know, next semester, I hear he's on a gap year. And I hear he's building a founder community that starts spanning all across the world. And I coincidentally end up interviewing his roommate for the org, I think it was like a month or two after that. And he was like, oh, do you know like this member? And I was like, oh yeah. He's like, yeah, for some reason, like in March after he went to this event, I saw him up until like 5 in the morning, like 2-3 times like a week, just like researching every single week. And I was like, that's when it clicked. I was like, okay, like this is really, you know, these types of orgs are really the things that can shift a person's life and a person's like trajectory. And dude's still on Gap. So it's been going well for him. But yeah, it's like those moments that really like key it in.
In line with, you know, all these successes, all this like, you know, competitive edge college universities might have in this industry, like is there a specific goal that you guys might have coming into the future for your club and in crypto in general, I guess?
Yeah, I think for just the students itself, giving them an opportunity to reach their full potential, whether it be through the industry, through getting technical skills, through doing something that they believe they're curious about. So really giving them that stepping stone, as my panelists have said, helping them get to that next level, I think is actually crucial in sort of the role of an organization on campus such as ours. And I think for just the organization itself, I think the goal really is just to survive. You know, you have such a high churn rate with people sort of coming in, leaving year to year, that getting the organizational functional and also having it survive in a functional form year over year, I think allows it to be in position for another bull market, for having those opportunities, for having that presence that builds and builds every year.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the big challenges about crypto, and especially learning in crypto, is that there's a lot of really terrible information out there. And like not everybody who comes and talks is going to be honest with you at all. So I think that one of the big roles for student organizations is for kind of the older students to help filter the information for the younger students. And obviously, like, we're not really saying this can be said or this can't be said, but it's just to kind of bring in people who we like kind of feel are high reputation people, and people who like have been building in the space for a while and who seem in it for the right reasons. You know, I think that when I first kind of joined BETC, like the first couple events we had were with like a couple of the research firms that I'd been reading for a while and like I liked the most, and it was one of the things that got me so into the club. So I think that that's a big role for us.
Is there something specifically you want to call out? A person, an experience?
I don't think I want to call on specific negative experiences, not the place.
Yeah, I would say like my answer would be similar to kind of what's in Jason's vein is really I see kind of our org and our community as a way where it's like we want to build a kind of a foundation to where for anyone who ever wants to be able to like take that initiative to take the first step, no matter what it is, you know, whether they want to be, you know, a marketer, they want to, you know, build the next, you know, ZK EVM, whether you want, you know, to build the next DeFi protocol, it doesn't matter. Like, there's a place for you, there's a community for you, and there's other people who you'll be able to share ideas with and be able to either build, contribute, or learn from. And just being able to like service every single demographic like possible, like that is the goal. That is like the end state. And that's like, you know, we get closer and closer every year, and I think like striving towards that is always been the goal.
I think we're missing.
What I think we're missing?
What kind of person has no place at Penn Blockchain?
I'd say like, biggest thing we're missing in Penn Blockchain, I would say like, I wish there was more to support founders, and more things to incentivize founders to stay in the ecosystem and contribute, and for founders to discover each other. I say that because like, as a budding one myself, my relationship with my co-founder did not come from like Penn Blockchain in particular. It was just kind of a relationship that I spun out, and he coincidentally ended up being into blockchain. And I know a lot of, you know, really interesting developers, really interesting founders on campus. Like, you know, they're not as engaged in the community because it's really hard to be able to, you know, one, be able to run your own organization, and then on top of that, you know, stay involved. And, you know, I'm currently fighting with that struggle, even running this organization, right? So to build a more like synergistic like incentive structure to where like these founders and these people who are really reputable, doing really impressive things, can also kind of still stay in the ecosystem and contribute, even if not to the greatest extent, but, you know, still feel the need to stick around and you know, look for that community, I think is really useful. And I wish we had more of it.
I guess kind of wrapping up, do you guys have, this is one of my favorite questions to ask when I interview people, but do you guys have like a hot take, spicy take about crypto clubs or crypto in general that, you know, might be a little unpopular?
Wait, can we do one of each? Well, one hot take about crypto clubs, one hot take about crypto in general, I bet.
You just made that
Start.
harder
I
for
think
me.
you should start.
Okay, bet. I'll put myself on the spot. Let's see. One hot take about crypto clubs. I think there, I don't know if that's a hot take actually, but I think there's going to be a lot of trouble differentiating us into the future. I think it's all going to get kind of samey. And I think a lot sooner than we think we're going to fall into the kind of consulting, like finance, like paradigm, where it's like you kind of have replications at every school and they kind of have their own smaller communities, and maybe there's like one or two standout schools, but like it's all going to get kind of samey. I want that to be different, but based on kind of the trajectory and like how much I've talked to like certain people who run orgs, it seems like we're all following like the similar preset path, which has been successful before, but I think isn't really differentiated. Hot take about crypto. We're not going to get an operational ZK EVM in for another like 2 to 3 years. I don't know if that's too hot, but I feel like a lot of people say that, like we're going to get one by end of year, and I'm like, that's cap, bro. It's not happening.
I have to second what Chunda said about like the evolution of these clubs, because I think the perception is that they're not really school clubs in the way that like you see student organizations, the kind of things that people join for like their resume. Like I truly believe that the blockchain clubs can be so much more because of what we talked about earlier about contributing to this space, being able to work in it directly through the club and just using like the club as a name or a platform for you to get that opportunity. But then as more and more clubs kind of reach out for the same opportunities, like have the same partnerships or research or grants from all these different protocols in the space, then it will get really saturated. So I think there in the future should be some sort of coalition or organization where we're not all like reaching out to the same place at once and kind of vying for these grants, but rather like finding a way to collaborate together. I have no idea what that looks like, but that's kind of one thought. Hot take in crypto, I also don't know if I have, this is particularly hot, but I'm pretty bullish on real world assets, but I know we're competing with that panel right now. It's in the main stage, so.
That's a hot take.
I'm
very bearish for real world assets. The Oracle problem, my guy.
I will agree with my previous panelist. I do think that blockchain clubs have that potential to be actually more than just a campus or something that extends much beyond just the campus and very deeply actually into industry, right? Which is a very unique position for most college students who usually don't have the leverage when they're coming, whether they're on campus or coming out of campus. As for a hot take on campus orgs, blockchain campus orgs in general, my hot take is actually that I think they're all very different. The reason I say this is because I think each blockchain club has a different founding story, and there's always a sort of unique DNA within that founding team, within that founding story, that basically affects everything down the road. So, as a result, you sort of have these different preconditions and then different teams that form from it. I know from us personally at UCLA, we were actually very inspired back in 2017 from the club that existed at Berkeley since 2014. And so I know for us, we saw this and said, hey, they actually have a model up there in Berkeley that works really well for them. They're like one of the hottest clubs on campus. They do a bunch of consulting work. They make real money, and not a meager amount. They make like pretty eye-popping numbers for college students. They take a bunch of trips, and we could actually just replicate and do the exact same thing here at UCLA, but sort of our version of it, right? And I think that with the sort of discoveries we made along the way, we also had different things to play with. Being at a different school with different faculty, having different relationships, we were able to actually inject and find our own way of what worked for our campus. So I actually think that on the outside, you might see these blockchain clubs as, this is maybe blockchain at Columbia, this is maybe Penn blockchain, this is blockchain at UCLA, but if you actually kind of get to know the people behind the organization, the events, and sort of the team, you can actually see we're actually very different, but we're also sort of unique in the way that we're all here on stage today. So I think that's my hot take for that. And my hot take for crypto is that I honestly don't have one, since anything I say might be a bit too blasphemous. So I will say I don't have a real appropriate hot take for crypto.
All right, I'm still thinking on crypto, but I'll go with the club first, which kind of covers crypto as well, is that and I maybe started to mention this earlier, but clubs who make deliberate efforts to embrace both the technical side of our industry and research side, but also the creative side. I guess the social goes in with that, but especially the artistic side. Like those that do embrace both sides will definitely excel, and those that don't might not as much. I don't know if I have a crypto hot take.
Bitcoin up or down?
Sideways.
That's a hot take,
Forever.
yeah.
That's hot.
Okay, sick. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay.
Oh, we got one right here.
I have some questions. So in running your meetings, either with like new members or like old members, what's like your philosophy to like keep them entertained throughout that process and like spark that interest you guys were talking about?
Make things fun. Like really though, I can't remember what you guys were doing for like demonstrating ZK, but I think it was like a riddle challenge or something. Wait, do you remember that?
I think there's like various ways to just make people excited about. It's more about like I think we've found maybe in the past year, and I think even Eric can speak to this a lot, is that when you build a community and you make everyone friends kind of in the organization, then it's so much easier to learn together, and you feel a little bit fueled because you can like bounce ideas off each other. I think personally, I've learned so much more by being surrounded by like the people in the club and being constantly pushed by them to learn more and like, have you heard about this? Have you seen this yet? Than I have like just trying to go into a meeting and like sitting down and looking at a lecture or something like that.
Bond, then build.
That's a good slogan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that make them feel a connection, and a connection like either to your club by figuring out what they would like to do and telling them you do that if you do that, or like, and we mentioned industry earlier, like a connection to the industry. I think that I do, maybe a couple others on stage do, like have Twitter accounts that a lot of big people in the industry follow, and you can like give that to somebody at a meeting, or you can kind of like talk to them about something you're working on the side, or talk to them about something someone in the club is doing, but connection over all else.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add to that, just offering opportunities. I think it's always a great way to get students involved, especially highly motivated, highly ambitious students. It's always a great time. It's a good recipe for sort of creating something that's bigger than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, I think definitely you should make it clear in recruitment, right? Like you're not joining just something just for your resume, like you're also joining community and set that expectation from the start and make it easy for them to spend time in that community and force them to be friends with people. I mean that's vibe. That's vibe.
That's another great slogan. Force them to be friends.
Anyone else? Oh, way in the back.
Yeah, what's like the best and worst ways for projects to support clubs?
Ooh, that's a good one.
On the worst, I think.
Oh, okay. Ooh, you get the
No,
worst. Yeah, I'll handle that.
it's not so bad. It's more just like, I think something that happens quite a lot is projects come to us and they're like, teach like this workshop, like, or this series of workshops, make it your sole education program. It's very difficult for us to, our goal is to be agnostic, right? Because we're not trying to influence a student on what technology they want to build on, like what path, like if they believe in like modularity or monolithic chains. Like we don't decide that for them. They decide that for themselves when they like actually learn and can support their opinions. But then when projects come to us and they're like, we'll sponsor you if you endorse or like become ambassadors for our chain or something like that. That's very difficult. That puts us in a really difficult place because we want to teach students about these options, but we don't want to like endorse one particular one.
And I would say like along the same lines, like the best rendition of that is to kind of come in and say, for those people who are interested in that, here's a specialized thing that they can go and do and they can go and engage with. And it's actually them engaging with the protocol team. It's actually them engaging with building something or like working on something, actually creating an opportunity to be a core contributor to that ecosystem and to that, or that protocol, or to the DAO, or so on and so forth, right? So it's, I think, like the delineation for us has always been the difference between like exclusion and then also being able to be like inclusive, and then focusing specifically on a certain like demographic of person, or like a specific application or use case that you feel like students can really dial in on. Because another like trap that a lot of protocols fall into is like generating like very broad guidelines of how they want to interact with us. And it's like, you know, it's nice for like generalized exposure, but if you want people to become core contributors, or if you want people to actually care about what your product is, what your business is, and to eventually like build the future of what your company like intends to want to do, you're going to have to give people the opportunity to kind of get their hands dirty with what you're working on.
Yeah, I think I'll give you both kind of in one. And like the thing about students is students are like sometimes unsure or non-decisive. So I think it's often helpful to present like some very canned things that like leadership won't have to feel like they have to do a whole lot to kind of connect you with students and make sure students know about all you're doing, but then also there's a flip side of that, which is that like students also move away if they feel too demanded and too like you're making them do something. So kind of just like casually sending events if you're doing them nearby and things like that like tend to go really great because those are really easy to communicate on to students. And if we're talking about setting up events, you know, offering to help with certain things is always amazing.
Yeah, I think one thing to add on is to create something that's really positive sum that benefits, you know, both an external party but also the student club itself, is to actually provide a really good opportunity, right? I think nowadays, especially for students who are in college working in blockchain and are skilled, they have very high opportunity cost, right? So anything they do is usually at the cost of 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 other things, right? Whether it might be taking classes, taking meetings, learning about a specific talent or, you know, technology, something of that sort. So I think in order to actually really make it go well, is to actually give the students an opportunity so good they actually can't refuse it for any reason, either monetarily or whatever, and just say like, hey, this is a, we dreamt this up, and this is a, you know, this is 100%, like this is it's the best thing we've ever done, right? So something of that sort, I think, is actually where you get to see a large amount of coordination that you might not otherwise see.
Okay, cool. Do you guys want to kind of sign off, say where they can find you, maybe what kind of person you're specifically looking to talk to in terms of sponsors or anything like that? I don't know.
Yeah, I love to chat with any DeFi builders or other uni preses. I take pretty often calls with like other university presidents who are like building their own orgs and things of that nature. Hit me up, DM me on Twitter at first and last name, Chunda McCain, or Telegram, Chunda_WT.
And for the club in general,
Oh yeah, and the club too. At Penn Blockchain for the club. On Twitter. Yeah, mainly Twitter DMs is where we respond. So just at Penn Blockchain and we'll get to you.
nothing to add.
Not your own socials?
I'm good.
I bet.
But I think, yeah, seconded everything Chunda says. I think like speaking for the club in general, it's really nice to interact with like a wide assortment of protocols because protocols funds everyone in the space because just getting like, I think uni is a lot about getting exposure because you haven't decided which direction in the crypto space you even want to go in, like whether you want to go on the venture side or you want to be on the builder side. So getting exposure to all of those is essential.
Yeah, so we've gotten some great advertisement about it from the Penn team already, but we have Lionhack coming up in April. Tentatively, we're planning it for April 14th to 16th, which is the same weekend as NFT NYC. So there should be a lot of crypto builders in the city around that time, but maybe subject to change, like weekend before, weekend after. And then as far as kind of what we'll be hacking on that at that event, we're not totally sure yet. We have a couple of thoughts towards tracks. A couple of the things we're thinking right now are ZK, social, institutional, blockchain, and DeFi. We'll probably pick 3 of those.
So we are not hosting hackathons soon, but we are on Twitter at Blockchain UCLA. So if you have anything that increase for the club, Twitter is also a great place. And then as for Telegram, personally, I get a lot of Telegram messages. So you just come and talk to me if there's anything personal, because I probably won't even get the Telegram message. So. Yeah,
and you can email us at blockchain@columbia.edu, and my Telegram is at Caleb Kopp. That's at CalebKaup.
Sick.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys.